Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop with another edition of Shop Talk. This is Shop Talk number 94. We're coming up quick on 100. Well, first thing is I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Looks like Matt Tomon, Tomon, is the first one. How's the weather at your place? Well, you're going to see that here in just a minute, exactly. You must be psychic. I'm going to show you a picture of that. There's Hoxao123. I don't know how to say that. From Denmark. Well, no wonder I can't say it. My goodness, from Denmark. So he's number 2. We got 46 viewers already. Well, the good news is after the wonderful Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States, I realize not everybody has the Thanksgiving holiday, but we do have that here, and my wispy hair is falling down. To be so vain. I hate it. The fact that it's just getting so thin now, it's just ridiculous. I was looking at those From the Vault videos, and just 4 to 5 years ago. Oh man, did I look so much younger. It's amazing. Well, anyway, the good news since after the Thanksgiving holiday is that we've hit our 83,000 subscribers. So we're less than 17,000 now to get to my 100,000, which has been my goal for a very long time. I hope it works out. Well, they're scrolling up the screen pretty fast now. Joshua Prince, Scott Roberts, Richard Ingram, Melan Toms, Jeremy Horwell, I don't know, Matt Tomon again, Bill Cochran. So anyway, it looks like we've really got a big crowd already, 82 viewers. That's wonderful. I was wondering if we'd have anybody here today, in the United States, especially since today is also considered a holiday for the Thanksgiving for most places. Not everybody gets today off, but a lot of people do. So let's move right on into some things here. First thing is, about some of these finds that I've been finding on the farm. I really, really want to say thank you for all the people that have made suggestions on what these things could be, because, you're very good at that, and it's really helping me a lot. I have for a very long time wanted to tie my farm into the American Civil War, which happened in the 1860s. And this might be my tie-in right here, this bullet. People were saying this could very well be a Civil War bullet, a Sharps rifle, and they were giving me dimensions, and I should go look those up again. But if you're, just in case you are a Sharps rifle expert, measuring across the widest part of the round here, so the very bottom end, I get, let me turn the calipers back on, make sure they're zeroed out, they are. I'm getting measurements from 641, 645, 638, because it's out of round. It's not perfectly round, but that'll give you some idea. It's in the, I would say, 640 range. That's just a ballpark. 635 to 640, somewhere in there is probably what this outside edge measures. The inside's even harder to tell because it's even more crushed. But I'm getting like 590 right there. On the narrow side, I'm getting like 540. So, that'll give you some idea. The length of it maybe broke off, or that might be the length. That length of this is about 927, somewhere in there. That's just a ballpark again, because everything's distorted, you understand. So if anybody does have a real good idea of what this, it's a rimfire cartridge. It's not a centerfire cartridge. It probably had black powder. I think you can see right there where the dent is, where they, the primer or the, I can never think of the word when I'm trying to think of it, but anyway, that's where it was struck right there, and the firing pin's what I meant to say. So that's where the firing pin hit and fired the cartridge. But anyway, this might be my first tie-in to the Civil War. Boy, that would be awesome if that's what that really is. Some more people made some good ideas about this lead weight. This lead weight, a lot of people said it could be for a fishing net that goes around the bottom of a net, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the river is about 1.5 miles from the location where we find this. So, I mean, it's possible somebody could have been taking a fishing net down there and maybe, catching fish or perhaps even using it in the creek and catching minnows, that type of thing. And then finally, the little marble. Lots of people had ideas about this. I really do think it's handmade. If you look, it probably isn't going to focus well enough with that camera. It probably won't. But there's little indentions and little things, and it makes you think it was handmade. But again, I don't know what that is for sure. Lots of people had ideas about this, and I'm not really sure yet which idea I'm landing on. But if you do have ideas about that also, it could just be simply a child's toy, but it's very lighter than your average marble would be. You know what I mean? Because it's made out of clay, Anyway, I'll move on from that. I just wanted to say thank you for all your ideas and suggestions, because that has really been helping me. We're going to jump right into comparing a brick. I've been calling that camera a brick because it basically was a brick until I got it working, and I did get it working, I think it was on Thanksgiving Day. I don't know. Well, anyway, I got it working, and so I thought I would show you a phone comparison. So what I did was this morning, somebody's already asked about the weather here, so I'm going to show you the weather in this camera comparison. So I have my cell phone in my left hand, and I have the DJI Pocket 2 gimbal camera in my right hand. And I really am curious to hear what you guys think about the two, what you think's good and bad about each one. If you want to make your comments, I would appreciate it. So here's the phone cam first. I can't do them side by side. I wish I could. I probably could if I knew how, but, rushing this morning, it wasn't going to be possible. So here's the phone cam first. And you'll have to be patient before I start talking, because I was turning on the other camera for a minute here. Okay, here we go. I've got both cameras. This is my cell phone in my left hand, and I have the DJI Pocket 2 in my right hand. It's the new camera that has the gimbal on it. So I'm going to walk across here and show you the foggy morning farm, and maybe you can, and I'm holding one in each hand obviously, and trying to walk and trying to keep the cameras pointed and all that good stuff, and just trying to see what works best. Trying to give you basically the same shots. Don't really know if I'm doing that very well or not. The gimbal camera moves much slower, which is the idea. Well, that's good enough. Let's see if we can see a difference. Okay, again, that was the cell phone. That's just my regular smartphone like this, using that out there and showing you the weather this morning, as you can see. So here is the Pocket 2. While this is playing, I'm going to run and grab something, and I'll be right back. So if you see a blank screen for a second or two, you'll know what's going on. But anyway, I'm going to play that right now. Here's the Pocket 2 with the gimbal. I'll tell you, the first thing I notice about it is the sound difference. So here you go. Okay, here we go. I've got both cameras. This is my cell phone in my left hand, and I have the DJI Pocket 2 in my right hand. It's the new camera that has the gimbal on it. So I'm going to walk across here and show you the foggy morning farm, and maybe you can, and I'm
holding one in each hand, obviously, and trying to walk and trying to keep the cameras pointed and all that good stuff, and just trying to see what works best. You know, trying to give you basically the same shots. Don't really know if I'm doing that very well or not. The gimbal camera moves much slower, which is the idea. Well, that's good enough. Let's see if we can see a difference.
Well, you know, I'll be honest, just from me looking at it, I didn't notice a whole lot of difference in the picture itself. I thought both pictures looked pretty good. I did think the gimbal was smoother. In other words, as I was moving, you didn't see the little bouncy little stuff. It was pretty much just stable, you know, which I thought was pretty nice. However, the sound was much less on the gimbal, I thought. Not nearly as powerful as it was on the cell phone camera. So the sound seemed different to me quite a bit. But so that means probably I'll have to get an external microphone for the gimbal camera, which, you know, pretty much is kind of a given anyway whenever you're going to be doing outside photography. So that's probably not a big point of contention anyway. So anyway, I would appreciate your comments on what you think about them. If you did see a significant difference in something, please state that in the comments there, and we'll get to that later. And by the way, if you do that, put a question mark in front of it so I'll see it. Otherwise, I may overlook it because I don't have a lot of time here. These comments will leave, and I don't get to see them after the live show here. Okay, so that was the camera comparison. My first guitar, you guys remember the recent video from the vault where I was working on that little electric guitar. And I said it reminded me a lot of the electric guitar that I had as a child. And I've still got that electric guitar. And people have often asked me, what was the very first guitar you ever worked on? Well, I guess if you go all the way back to the beginning, I guess it's this one. You know, really, it truly is, even though, you know, I was doing this for myself, of course. And here's what she looks like. It's a nice little guitar. I painted it red. It was kind of a, I don't know, it was kind of a leprechaun emerald green. My dad called it gourd green. I don't know. It was a weird color. I didn't like the color of it at all. And keep in mind, I'm colorblind, but yet I don't see black and white. I see certain kinds of colors, and I didn't like the look of that other, you know, with my eyes anyway. Knowing what I know now, I would give anything if I never would have modified it. I really wish I would have kept it original, obviously, but I didn't. You know, I was a kid, and you know how kids do. But I didn't do a bad job, I don't think, painting it as a kid, you know. I mean, it turned out pretty decent. These strings are probably at least 50 years old and could be older than that. I think I got this when I was around 8, and I'll soon, very soon, be 68, as in, I think, Monday. So anyway, you know, it's about 60 years that I've owned this guitar, yeah, I guess about 60 years that I've owned this guitar, and I would say the strings are most of that age, too. They're probably 50 years old. So let's turn on the amp and at least let you hear it. I already know there's a short in the plug down here, so when I move this plug, it goes in and out, so we'll have to wait, see how that works. All right, I've turned it on. Let's see if it'll play. Not too bad. It does have a couple of switches. I mean, I'm not going to mess with it too much because I figure as old as it is, if it's playing, I better just leave it alone right now because sure enough, if I go flipping stuff, it's going to... And I'm 99% sure that it was a silver tone. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm about 99% sure it was a silver tone. That's from my memory as a child. And the serial number on the back, which I can still barely make out, looks like 73248. It's possible it's 75248. It's possible that last 8 is a 9. I mean, those are just numbers. So if those of you who are into that sort of thing want to look that up, Silvertone with those serial numbers, 73248 is what I think it is. But it's hard to say for sure. But anyway, it's a pretty cool little guitar. It's really small except for the neck. The neck is huge. The neck's bigger than your average guitar neck these days. It's really big. And for a little kid, when I had it, it just seemed so hard to play because it was such a big neck. But now with these hands, it's not a problem. But anyway, there it is. That's what it was. That's what got it all started, I guess, years ago. And by the way, here's the original case for it. And I was so sad when I pulled it out of storage and saw this big busted out spot right here in the case. That was never broken before. When I put it away, there was no break in this case. So I don't know what happened to it while it was in storage, but something obviously happened. And it also got wet along here on the bottom, which really makes me sad because I wish that would have stayed perfect because it was really pretty good before now anyway. Oh well, stuff happens. Okay, moving along. I only had a couple of questions from yesterday. I see quite a few questions scrolling up already, so I know we'll have plenty to talk about. The first question that I have, and I had to look this one up, I'll be honest with you. Somebody says, talk about placing the soul of a violin. Well, when you talk about placing something, there's only two things that I know about placing, and one of them is the bridge, and the other one is the sound post, and I wasn't sure which one they were talking about. And I'm not 100% sure now. I looked it up, I Googled it, and the videos that came up were talking, the ones that I could make out, they were all in foreign language. The one I could make out the best was talking about the sound post. So that's where I'm going to plan my presentation here. It's going to be about placing the sound post as the soul of the violin. And that does kind of make sense because where you place the sound post in a violin can really affect the sound or affect the tone of the violin especially. It can make them sound very, very harsh, make them sound really thin and tinny, or it can make them sound very nice and very woody, depending on where you put the sound post. The sound post is very critical to a violin. Do I think I'm the expert in this topic? No, not necessarily, but do I have some experience with it and do I understand it pretty well? Yeah, I think I do. I would say I might be in the low 90 percentile on this subject. maybe the upper 80 percentile if I'm being fair. But I do think I understand it pretty well. Okay, so let me show you the tools and things that I use for this sound post. This is a tool that actually someone gave me, I believe, and this is for reaching in the sound hole and manipulating the sound post. You can push it with the bottom or push the top of the sound post to move it where you want it. You can also grab it here and pull it back if it's in too far. So this little manipulator is fairly handy. This side I don't like, but a lot of people use this to actually place the sound post. It's not my favorite way to do it at all. In other words, you would stick this into the sound post and put it down through the hole and then manipulate it with that and put it in place, and then you pull this right out. It's just got a blade there that would stick into I think you can sort of see it. Anyway, that's not my favorite method for that. But that's one tool right there. Here's another tool for manipulating the location. Again, I like this tool pretty well because you got a very firm grip on it. You can reach in there, grab a hold of it just like a pliers, and you can grab the sound post at the top and move it at the top, or you can grab it down at the bottom and move it at the bottom and get it right where you want it. So that's a fairly handy tool. This tool is for measuring the length of your sound post. And you loosen this up, and then you can slide this up and down, and you can slide it from in. Once it's inside the violin, you can lift this up, and then it'll touch the bottom and the top, and then you lock that down. Then you wiggle it out and pull it out the sound hole, and then you cut your post to that length. And that's what that tool's for. A very handy tool. And of course, you want to try to make sure that you're putting this in the location where you actually want the sound post. You don't just arbitrarily stick it in there and just measure something. You try to get it exactly where you're going to put the sound post and then measure that. Now here is the most used tool that I have when it comes to sound posts. What is it? It's a piece of coat hanger. I use this by far more than any other tool, and it's bent on purpose the way I like to use it. There is a tiny, you can't see this little tiny hook, but there's a little tiny hook right on the end of it there. I'm spinning it around trying to let you see it, but there is a little tiny hook there. So what I do is now, by the way, I'll talk about the sound post here in a minute because the sound post itself is very important too. But what I do is I take this and drill this into the edge of the sound post like so, and just literally drill it in there. Then it's stuck on there. I can go down through the sound hole, put it in place, and then I can either pull this straight out if it comes out, or I can literally unscrew it out. And it'll leave the sound post where you want it. Then I have the hook on the other end to manipulate it. I can pull it into place like that. And I can even push it with that. I don't use that all that often, but typically you can push it with this too if you need to. So, but that tool I just made out of a coat hanger, and I actually use this probably more than any other tool. I made a larger version for larger instruments like cellos and basses and things like that. So this one here does exactly the same thing, just much bigger version. Now the sound post itself is very important. I only got this out this morning just as a just as a representative of a sound post. This is not a sound post. And you think, well, what's the difference? Because it's a piece of wood and it looks like a sound post. Well, this is a piece of hardwood dowel. That is not what you want for your sound post. You want a piece of quarter sawn spruce for your sound post. Spruce is much softer than this hardwood. This will be a harsher sounding sound post than the spruce would be. The critical thing about a sound post is that you want the lines in your sound post, because it's quarter sawn and there are lines, grain lines, running the length of your sound post. And you want those grain lines perpendicular to the top of your violin. So in other words, I've drawn them in here just for illustration purposes, but you can see the lines there. And those lines would be the grain lines of the tree, of the growth rings growing down through this. And you want those perpendicular to the growth rings that are going through the top. So the top is going this way with the growth rings going this way, and the sound post has the growth rings growing this way. And that's the way you want to put it in there. Also, it's very subtle, but you'll notice that this top is beveled just very slightly so that it matches the internal carved top and the internal carved bottom. It's the bevels oppose one another. In other words, as you pull it this way, it'll get tighter and tighter because the top is carved and the bottom is carved, and so it wedges itself in there. And if you didn't bevel these, then it would just be setting on the very edge. It wouldn't be setting flat. So that's the reason you do the bevel, and that gives it a little bit more friction. I like to say when a violin is set up perfectly, it is absolutely ready to fall apart. And you think, Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, it does make sense because everything on a violin is friction. You don't glue, you don't fasten anything. Everything is held by friction. The tail pin goes in by friction. The little strap around there holding the tailpiece on is essentially friction. It's tied to that, but if the pin comes out, which is friction, it all falls apart. So, and then the strings and the pegs themselves are all friction. The sound post is set in there by friction. The bridge on top is set on top by friction and held in place by the strings. You start loosening things up, it falls apart, literally. So when they're set up perfectly, they fall apart easily. And so that's why it's so important to cut the sound post to the right length, get the bevels perfect, put it in perpendicular to the grain. All those kinds of things make a difference. Now, where do you place it? That's the important thing, and I think that was the gist of the question. Where do you place it? Well, I should have gotten a bridge out for demonstration purposes too, but it's kind of hard to explain. I'll do it this way. The head of the violin is that way. The tail of the violin is toward me. So if this is the bridge, you want it behind the right foot or the treble foot of the bridge, and you want it, approximately an 1/8 inch of space between the foot and the top of the sound post, at least an 1/8 inch. You can play with that a little bit more, gives you a little bit more woody sound. If you get it under the foot, it's going to sound really harsh. It's going to sound so thin and tinny, it's just not going to sound good at all. So you're not going to like that. So you want it behind the foot, and you want it, like I said, about an 1/8 of an inch. That's just talking out loud, that's 120 thousandths or about 3 millimeters roughly. Maybe a little bit more is probably better than a little bit less. So let's just give you some ballpark idea. And you kind of want it behind that foot, you don't want it to this side of the foot, and you don't want it over here. You want it kind of directly behind that foot, if that makes sense to you. Okay. I think I beat that to death because I don't know anything more about it than what I just told you, I think. I think I told you everything I know. If you have questions about that, go ahead and place those in the comments there, and we'll get to those in a minute. All right, moving on. The last item that came from the comments yesterday from the vlog or whatever was that someone wanted to hear my thoughts on, I think it's called the tone bar for the guitar. In other words, let me get a flat top here. This poor Gibson still hasn't been worked on. Okay, so what it essentially is you put your string down through here. So the ball of the string goes down through there like normal. You pull the ball out through the sound hole. Then you run this rod through all the balls, all the eyes, and then you pull all the strings up at once, and now there's a rod on the inside running through all the eyelets. And they wanted to know what's my comment on that. What do you think about that? I have to... Okay, I'll tell you. I'm going to sugarcoat this for the camera. I think it sucks. Canal water. That's what I think. That's sugar-coated. If I told you what I really thought, I'd get kicked off YouTube. No, you're fixing another problem we don't even have. It's not going to improve anything. There might be a tiny, tiny bit of difference in sound. But just think about this for a second. You got this little wire running through all those eyelets. What if you break one of the middle strings? Even if you break one of the outside strings, how are you going to fix that? I mean, it's a ridiculous concept. It's just absolutely asinine. That's all I can say. It's just as stupid as it can be. In the video, it said that the guy was out looking for patent on this. I'm thinking, good luck, buddy. I hope you do get it patent, because that's going to cost you several $1,000s, and you'll never make 3 cents of that back. It's just a stupid idea. So there you go. Now that's as sugar-coated as I can get. Anyway, there you go. I'm done. Now everybody is probably, closed out their YouTube and gone on somewhere else after that one. We do still have 161 viewers for right now. In a couple minutes, that may change. All right, let me go back up to the top here and see where the question marks are, and we'll get moving there. I know I saw a bunch of them. Don, I don't know how to pronounce the name. Gennard, I'll just say it like that. Don Gennard is asking about lemon oil on a fretboard. Well, the truth of it is, Don, I don't know much about lemon oil. I can't imagine it being a problem, though, on their fretboard. So the truth is, I don't have any experience with it, so I have to give you the honest answer first. But almost any kind of oil works on a fretboard, including, believe it or not, 3-in-1 oil is better than no oil at all. So, I mean, you can do almost anything on that. So I don't think that lemon oil should be a problem. The only reason I even slightly hesitate is because I know lemon itself, if it truly is lemon oil, is a little bit more like acidic type thing. And, maybe there's some aspect from that perspective, but the oil itself should be fine. The only other thing about natural oils, like if you tried to use olive oil or something like that, I think that some of those kinds of things can go rancid, and you may not want to try to use something like that. But otherwise, most any kind of oil you use on your fretboard should be okay. But that's my best answer I got because I don't have any experience with lemon oil. Mahesh Chander, has there ever been a customer that you couldn't satisfy? Yes. More than once, I have to admit, unfortunately. I've told you in the past, and I mean this from the very bottom of my heart, music instrument customers, musicians are the pickiest people on the planet. And I mean on the planet. There's nobody pickier than musical instrument people. And that's why I always caution anybody that says, oh, I want to do what you're doing. I want to be a luthier. Well, okay, just jump right in there. I don't have a problem with that. But you better understand your customer, because trust me, they are going to eat you raw. And I got ate raw on YouTube for the longest time when I first came out because I had different methods. I used different techniques. I do it the way that makes sense instead of the way that they tell you you have to do it. And I got ate alive on that for a long, 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 long time. And yes, I've had plenty of customers that just, you just can't satisfy them. Like, I'll give you one good example. I'll just use this as my example. Okay, it was an acoustic guitar, okay? And so the body like this, and it had a hole knocked in it here, and I don't remember all the other things, but I did a complete setup. I fixed the hole where you could even barely tell it. Now, keep in mind, it's a thin acoustic, guitar, so the hole has to be patched and, refinished and all that, and stained and all that. And it looked really good, in my opinion. It was about as good as you could do. And, I did a real good job on the fretboard and all these other things. And by the way, this particular customer begged me to take this guitar. I kept saying, I don't really want to mess with it. It was a cheap guitar. On top of that, it wasn't an expensive guitar. And I should have just listened to my first instinct and not accepted the job. So when I sent it back to him, he ranted and raved and absolutely got all over me and thought it was the worst job ever because there was a little tiny, and I'm not exaggerating when I say little tiny, it was like the size, smaller than a pencil lead, little tiny hole under the nut area here. And it didn't go all the way through, it was just a small little hole. And literally just read me the riot act. And I mean just went on and on and on. And I said, look, have a nice life. I'll see you later. And I just hung up the phone, wrote it off, and said, see you later. I didn't, and I sent him his money back, the whole bit. Yeah, I don't want to deal with people like that. But I'm seriously telling you, musician people are the pickiest people on the planet. Zero, none. Nobody else is pickier. I don't care who you're talking about, musicians. And when you get into the classical version of that, it's even worse, and which is probably why those violin shops charge the outrageous money. I mean, outrageous, ridiculous money. So there you go. Okay, moving on. Scott Roberts, the thing that looks like a marble appears to be the inside part of a whistle. Yeah, I had that as an idea also, but that's an awful big deal for a whistle. You'd have to have one big whistle. I actually thought of that. I mean, it kind of still could be, but it would have to be a pretty darn big whistle. It's a big marble, really. It's not as big as your standard marble, but it's a lot bigger than any of those peas that I've seen inside of whistles. But I agree with you. That's kind of what it looks like. That's kind of what it seems like it could be. But I don't really think that's what it is. But anyway, it's a good thought. Michael Berkmeyer, could you explain how you get the numbers for cutting out the neck dovetail on the neck? Yeah, I can explain that. I do that probably a little different than your average also. First of all, the angle of the dovetail is set totally by the router bit. So you buy and I forget what degree router bit it is. I want to say 15 degree. I'm pretty sure 15 degree would be fine if they make them in that degree. But anyway, so the router bit, the dovetail bit that you buy sets the angle just by the fact that it has the angle cut into it. But as far as the actual size or the shape of it, I just go to my plans and I just measure it, and then I just go over to my neck and I find the center line of my neck and I draw the center line in, and then I measure out from the center on one side, measure out from the center on the other side. Down at the bottom, I do the same thing. And then I draw that line, and then I just take my router and just go down both sides, and I leave the line. It's always important to leave the line. Just barely leave it. Once you get really good with a router, you can do these things. It's not the easiest thing to do your very first time, because it'll want to grab and jerk and do all these things, and you have to understand all that. The trickiest part about it, the way I do it, is keeping it flat and centered on top of that little tiny dovetail, because at some point it gets pretty small, But I don't have any problem with it. I have a solid base on my router, so it's just the bit sticking through the solid base. You can't do it with a big hole in your base of your router. There'd be no way to do that. But I don't have any problem with it, and that's how I do it. I just literally go to my plans, I just measure it, and I literally then draw it on the part that I'm cutting out. And then when I'm cutting out the dovetail for the neck block on the guitar, then you got to measure the inside of the dovetail, and you cut it to the inside. You sure don't want to measure the outside, because you're going to make your dovetail way too big. So that's the important thing when you're routing the one in the guitar body, is to make sure you're measuring the narrowest part of the inside of the dovetail and draw that inside narrow part on your body. I hope that makes sense, but that's all there really is to it. Someone gave me a super chat, but it doesn't have a name up there, and let me see if I click on it, if it'll tell me. Clyde Lewis, thank you very much, Clyde Lewis. I really do appreciate it very much. He says, thanks, Jerry, glad you're back. Well, thank you. Let me see if I can find the next question here. Richie Stanfill says, is it okay to store your electric guitar in a cold room without any heat? Well, cold is not as bad as heat, I will say that. I think it depends on how cold you're talking. If you're talking above freezing, like maybe in the 40s or 50s, I don't think you're going to have any problem. If you get sub-zero temperatures, almost anything can be a problem at that point. So I wouldn't want to. What I've always said about guitars is keep them in a place you'd be comfortable. That's what I've always said. But in terms of a cold room, like my shop gets down to 50 degrees, that's not a problem. You know, at night, I keep the furnace set at about 50 degrees, and that's plenty warm. You don't have to worry about that degree. If it gets below 30, you know, down in the 20s, that type of temperature, and I'm talking Fahrenheit now, so that would be, you know, quite a few degrees below freezing. In the same way on your Celsius, if you were below your zero, you definitely are, you know, on the edge there. I wouldn't keep it in temperatures like that. I would try to keep it in temperatures that are, you know, in the 40s to 60s, that type of, if you're storing it, and you'll be fine. Is there oh, yeah, someone asked, is that an electric guitar on the bench? Yeah, that's the one we've been talking about here, so I guess you've seen that by now. Bruce Ducker, picture was about this. Okay, he's talking about the cameras. He says the picture was about the same, but like you said, the motion was better. Sound was good, might be better in the wind. You know, I think you're right there. I think that's a good point, Bruce, because and I'm only going by what I've heard on YouTube. The DJI camera supposed to be much better in the wind. It's got four little microphones built in, I think. It's kind of a weird case too. Like the microphones are built in like right in these little holes, you know. And there's four of them apparently, one down here and then three around the edges. And supposedly this is much better in the wind. I don't know because I haven't been out in the wind with it yet. But anyway, we'll see. I'm hoping it works because I do want to do some outside videoing down the road. And I probably will have to get an external mic. David, boy, you guys are really hitting me with these names today. Gara Goslin, something like that. That's just my best guess. Is asking, have you tried color correcting glasses that allow colorblind folks to see color? Yes, David, I have. I've tried 4 or 5 pair of them. And quite honestly, I think there's about 90% hype to that. Does it work? Yeah, sort of it does. I mean, it sort of does. But, you know, to me, I think the fake videos that you see where these people are, and they start crying because they can see color. Unless they maybe they have a totally different kind of color blindness than I have. See, I don't see black and white. And I don't think very many colorblind people see black and white. Most colorblind people see shades of the colors. They just don't see them very well. And that's my problem. I mean, like, I do not see black and white. Like, I can tell that guitar is red. How do I know? I don't know, because whenever I take a color blindness test, I fail them miserably. I don't even get close. So I don't know how I tell, and I don't know. But that's when I put on the colorblind glasses, do I see a huge difference? On the cheap ones, I see a huge difference. I mean, a huge difference. What it turns out is that those are distorting the colors tremendously. And see, that's what screwed me up, I think, was because I bought the cheap ones first, and I thought, wow, these things really make a difference. And they really did. I mean, they make a huge difference. But, you know, if the colors are distorted a different way, that doesn't help you. For instance, like school buses, which I think are a little bit on the yellow-orange side, they look kind of like, I think, like lemons. I mean, really bright, you know, color. And I'm like, I don't think that's quite right, you know. And then I would see other cars and stuff, and I'd ask people, I'd say, what color is that car to you? And to me, it didn't look like the color they were describing, you know, with those cheap glasses. But I thought, well, since these do at least work, and I can actually, quote unquote, pass the colorblind tests online with the cheap glasses, I thought I'll spend the big bucks and get the good glasses. And so I did, and I spent the $400 or whatever it was, waited for flippin' ever. I think it was 4 months to get these stupid glasses. When I got them and I put them on, I went, Are you kidding me? I couldn't see anything different about them. Like I put them on and I couldn't even tell I had them on, hardly. I mean, the only thing that they did for me was act like sunglasses. They didn't do a thing for me at all after spending those big bucks for it. I don't know. So, no, they don't work. I don't think they work that good. I mean, you definitely see some color. Maybe sometime down the road they'll even perfect it better, but they don't work for me. They don't. In fact, I think they distort it worse than I see it naturally. Anyway, moving on. Scott Roberts. 68, he says, yeah, me too. Welcome to the Old Codger Club. Yeah, I'll be 68. I think it's Monday, the 28th, whatever the 28th is. I didn't look it up. Yeah, and the fella says, yeah, he did mean the soundpost when he said the soul. Good. So at least I talked about the right thing, because if I'd have spent all that time talking about the wrong thing, that would have been a bad deal. Rick Ward. I'm a youngster, only 64. And for whatever reason, this thing just changed big time. Oh, I see a whole bunch of spam out there, so just ignore that. Sorry about that, but I can't do a thing about that. Okay, I'm moving. It scrolled up on me, so I got to find my place again. Keely Zhao, I guess is the way to pronounce it. Why doesn't an F-hole mandolin have a sound post? Well, the sound post on a violin is a different technology than a sound post in another type instrument. I think here, this is me talking, my theory. I haven't seen this printed anywhere. I don't know that anybody else agrees with this. This is me talking, just so you understand. To me, it's a different technology. When you're bowing something, you have a continual vibration. It's a and it sends that vibration down through that sound post, and it makes the whole body vibrate. When you're plucking something, it's a completely different thing. It's a tink, like that type of thing, and you want the body to vibrate. Now, when you put the sound post in there, in a pluck situation, it seems to actually limit some of the vibration rather than enhance it. And it also makes it very harsh. So have I ever put sound posts in mandolins? Yes, I have on a couple of occasions, 2 or 3 occasions, in fact. And did they need a sound post? Yes, they needed a sound post because the tops were caving in, and they were cheap mandolins, and it was just so that the person could learn how to play the mandolin. It wasn't like they were going to be playing Carnegie Hall, so the sound wasn't terribly important, but it did not help the sound. It fixed the problem with the top caving in, but it didn't help the sound. So you don't want to put a sound post in a plucked instrument. On a vibration type instrument, yeah, the sound post works great. Okay, moving on. That's just my theory, guys. I think it makes sense. I think that's the common sense answer. What is Thanksgiving? Someone is asking from Denmark. Thanksgiving is, well, it started with the Pilgrims, and I don't know that I remember the whole story behind it, but, the Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower type is the romantic story, and they were starving to get, basically trying to make it in the New World, and the Indians came and helped them out, gave them food and different things, and they all sat down and had a big meal, which they called their Thanksgiving meal. That's the gist of it. That's the romanticized version of it. But it became a holiday, a national holiday, where we all try to give thanks for all that we have. And, it's just a national holiday, a day of giving thanks for the things that we have in our lives. And I am one lucky man, so I had a lot to be thankful for. That's really about the gist of it. I hope, unless somebody else wants to explain it better in the comments. Let's get those thumbs up. Yeah, please do. Click the thumbs up. Let's see here. Moving on, Michael Berkmeyer gave me a super chat. Thank you very, very, very much, Michael. I appreciate it. Then there's a bunch of spam there, so ignore all that. Let's see, Jesse Burge, my buddy Jesse Burge, the one that had the table saw accident and hurt his fingers, or yeah, I think it was his pointer finger. Sorry I'm late, but what is the status on the Dobro? Well, it's 0 status, unfortunately, Jesse. And I don't see that changing because you wouldn't believe how many instruments came in even during my vacation. I'm so far behind again, I don't even know which end's up. Yeah. When I make that little comment of I'm so far behind, I think I'm in front, that's referring to one of those racetracks where people are lapping you and they're coming up from behind you and you think you're in front of them. But you're really behind. That's pretty much where I'm at in my life right now, especially on instruments. So there's not going to be any building anything for a while. David David Poggioli, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. That's a Silvertone made by Harmony called a Newport, originally green color with albumin body binding called Harmetal or something like that. Yeah, this is aluminum with this rubber in here. Now, I didn't change any of that, by the way, just so you know. That's all original. Everything's really original on it except the color. As far as I know, every single part of it's original. But just the color. Yeah, and if I knew then what I know now, I would never have painted it, doggone it anyway. But stuff happens. Well, thank you for looking that up, David. Cruel 103. Do you know any luthiers in England you can recommend to do neck resets? Well, no, not really. I mean, there's some very prominent ones out there on YouTube, and that would be my best resource. Sorry, I'm not going to recommend one or the other because I don't really know them, and so it would be better off just to not say anything. David's asking aluminum binding. Basically, that's what this is aluminum binding, aluminum with rubber insert. It's just some sort of aluminum extrusion with a track there that they put the rubber inside. It was good for a kid. It kept me from banging it around too much. I'm sure I drug it on the floor. It wouldn't surprise me as a kid. Moving on here, and I think it scrolled again. Yeah, it did. Let me find my place. What do you know about the Kasha bracing system? Any good? White Dragon is asking that, and the answer is I know absolutely nothing about that. I don't think I've even heard of it, so I can't comment on that one, unfortunately. Bluebird 123, have you ever been asked to do work on less common instruments like hurdy-gurdy or been asked to work on rare instruments? Well, yeah, I've worked on lots of rare instruments, I guess you'd say. The hurdy-gurdy, I think I had one of those in here one time. In fact, I'm sure I did. I just don't remember much about it. I have worked on pretty much everything you can think of with strings, smaller than a piano, pretty much everything. I've had sitar. What's the bigger version of the sitar? I think it's a bigger version anyway. Starts with a P. I can't think of it right now. But I've had pretty much everything. Balankas or balaikas, however you say it. I don't know that I'm the expert on all the words, but I've worked on almost everything you can think of. I've had just about everything come through the shop at one time or another. I'm sure there's still some out there I haven't seen. I have worked on tipples. I don't know, just pretty much everything. Gotta Fly Lee says, does an upright bass have a sound post? Yes, it does. Pretty much all the violin family instruments have a sound post. Hey, we're about to run out of questions and we're about out of time, so it's going to work out just perfect. Jim Page, could that marble be part of an old-timey soda bottle stopper? I don't know about that. I think they were in use in the 1890s or so. Google calls them Cod's ball stopper. I'll have to look that up. I don't know nothing about that one, but thanks, Jim, for the idea. I'll sure look into it. Both of my grandmothers were born on November 28th. Well, that's cool. Happy birthday. And a friend of mine, your name is Jim there, it looks like, and a friend of mine, Jim Spadaro, who is a heart surgeon, his birthday is on November 28th also, but he's 1 year older than me. He plays mandolin also, a good friend of mine. Are we going to do a Christmas performance? I have it planned. We haven't really set a date or anything, but we've been practicing the last hour or so of our gig at Dickey's. The last couple of weeks, we've been practicing Christmas tunes. So we're getting practiced up again. Unfortunately, it's going to be kind of the same old Christmas tunes, every year it seems like. So I'm going to try to find a new one or something. And see if I can learn at least one or two new ones. Clarence Hatfield, I have two mandolins. One has tall frets, the other does not. Can I file the tall frets down to the same level as the other one, short frets? Thanks. Love your channel. Well, Clarence, yeah, sort of you can. I mean, a lot of people would probably say, no, you can't do that, but I don't really see a problem with it myself. The problem you might have would be often tall frets or wider frets also. And if they're a lot wider and you file them way down, it's going to be hard to recrown them. But if they're the same width, I don't see any problem with it at all. You just file them down and you should be just fine to go with that. And you'll just have to recrown them after you're done. Jesse Bird says his birthday is November 28th also. Oh, that's pretty funny. 1945. Well, my numbers are reversed. Mine are 54. Yours is 45. And then let's see. First time catching the live stream, Jerry. You're an amazing luthier. I really enjoy the videos, and big hello from Nova Scotia, Canada. Well, JP, thank you very kindly for the nice words there. And I missed seeing you when I was in Nova Scotia a few years ago. We had a good trip through Canada. That was really an amazing place. We just loved it. And we got to stop in and meet with Victor, who got to... I featured him on a couple of videos right after we got back. Victor is a really nice fella, and his family, and he's, I can't remember all the names, me and names, but the one fellow made guitars out of maple, made beautiful guitars, and they sounded great. I'm not going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I've always said that the maple back guitars don't seem to have the same sound to me. They don't seem to sound as well. But I'll tell you what, that guy's maple guitars sounded really good, and as good as any I've ever heard. So, anyway. I don't know if Victor's still watching the channel or not, but if you are, Victor, a big hello to you. George French, how about writing your own Christmas song? Could be a bonanza if it catches on. Well, I did write my own Christmas song, and we will be performing that when we figure out when we're going to do our Christmas program. I wrote one called Christmas on the Farm, and the story on that song, just so you know, you've heard it on here before when we've done our Christmas programs, but basically I was invited to play on a bluegrass Christmas show in Rolla, Missouri that had been going on for many, many years. And I was invited to take part in it. And they said, but the problem is, all the good songs are already taken. You're going to have to write your own. So I did. I wrote my own Christmas song, and I think it turned out pretty good. Being biased, of course, but I really have had very nice comments about it, so we'll be doing that when we do our live Christmas show. Okay, I think that's going to be it for today. We're right on our hour, and somebody says, how about a live song right now? Well, I didn't plan one. I don't know. I really did not plan anything, but I had my mandolin hanging up there, so let's see. I don't know. Well, we were just talking about my Christmas song. How about if I do a little bit of that? Why not? I'll give you the caveat. It sounds a whole lot better when the whole band's playing. Of all my memories of Christmas, my favorite are of Christmas on the farm, with Mama baking cookies in the kitchen, and Grandma knitting treasures out of yarn. Our little train circling round the wood stove, presents neatly wrapped and tightly bowed. My brothers fighting over homemade candy, and building a new play made out of snow. These are my memories of Christmas, a Christmas with a little country charm. Just think what a better place this world would be if we could all share a Christmas on the farm. Remember the day before Christmas, Dad would take the axe and us kids would go with him out back to find that perfect memory. Then we'd take turns dragging it back home. We set that little tree up in the front room, Grandpa would hang the star upon, and Mama would always say how pretty, and Sister would sing "O Tannenbaum." These are my memories of Christmas, a Christmas with a little country charm. Just think what a better place this world would be if we could all share Christmas on the farm. Just think what a better place this world would be if we could all share a Christmas on the farm. That was unrehearsed, you understand. Cut me some slack. Like I said, it sounds better with the whole band. Or at least I think it does. Anyway, that's going to be about it for today. Couple of people have nice little symbols there, a thumbs up and a heart, and wow, that mandolin looks beautiful. Thank you. I am really happy. Well, here you go. Look, here's a good comparison. Here's where I started. Here's where I ended up. You know, really, that's the truth right there. I couldn't say it any more plain than that. This is where I started. This is where I ended up. And I'm really happy with this mandolin, I got to tell you. Lots of applause there. Thank you very much, guys. You're very kind to me. And I just, again, want to just say thank you for all the wonderful support. You guys have been so wonderful. Thank you so much for helping me with figuring out what these artifacts are, too, because some of the suggestions people have made me think. And I thought, you know, I thought it was one thing, and they're saying something else. I'm going, oh, you know, they probably are right, you know, that kind of thing. So I appreciate that. And you'll probably see more artifacts coming up down the road, because I'm very excited about trying to learn about those people's lives that lived here back in the 1800s. I think it's pretty cool. I think the coolest thing of all, and I guess most of you know, that I found that lady's wedding ring, lady's wedding band, and it was a size 7, and it was crushed, but I was able to uncrush it and move it back out to a perfect size 7, and under the microscope you can still see little tiny gold flakes on it, which is just awesome. I would just love to know who that lady was, and that whole story would be so cool. Thank you so much. Y'all have a blessed weekend, and we will see you on Monday.